It's chaos.
It's a different type of Sunday scary.
It's your newest obsession.
It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast.
We're the Hornsby sisters. I'm Katie.
And I'm Megan.
Yeah. Megan, do we have a ton to talk about of all the things that happened off track this weekend?
I think more happened off track than on track that I care to talk about.
I would have to heavily agree with that statement. I feel like there was more action with stuff going on off the track, whether it was celebrities, whether it was dinners, whether it was golfing, whether it was helmet reveals. Like, there were so much more interesting things happening outside of the race than what actually took place during the race.
Which is absolutely awful for me to say that, but I felt like all of the days leading up to the Grand Prix were chaotic on the internet, and then the actual day of the Grand Prix, other than Martin Brundle's grid walk, was fairly unchaotic. I mean, the majority of the race was cookie cutter boring, and then we had some spiciness thanks to Pierre Gasly just trying to make sure we were all awake. But I mean, the big shit we need to talk about right now is essentially everything that happened before Sunday.
Yeah, I even wrote in my notes like that it was a party of a weekend, because I just felt like there were so many cool things happening. Like Lewis Hamilton even like kind of donned it as like the Super Bowl of Formula One,
which is okay. First off, hilarious, because I did see that he had actually watched a couple of Super Bowls, so I genuinely need to get a better. I need someone to ask Lewis Hamilton what he thinks of American football, and more importantly, who his favorite commercial or what his favorite commercials have been.
Yeah, that's actually a great question for him. I would love to know those things.
Lewis, I need to know what Super Bowls you watched and what your favorite commercials were, and go.
And then Pierre Gasly had dinner with Michael Jordan, and Daniel Ricciardo was a little jealous. He was a little peanut butter and jelly.
I mean, I was more jealous of Michael Jordan having dinner with Pierre Gasly than Pierre Gasly having dinner with Michael Jordan. No hate on Michael Jordan. Love the man. Katie and I watched The Last Dance. We love him. But I mean,
we do.
Dinner, but I mean, Pierre Gasly.
Dinner, Pierre Gasly, yeah. Signed
helmet.
Just
said the same thing.
And then, honestly, this is a low point for the weekend. We might lose a couple followers with me saying this, but I do not like Tom Brady, but Lewis Hamilton did play golf with Tom Brady, and there was a lot of photos and lots of championship rings and championship that out and about. So respect him as an athlete, but not my favorite person.
He's definitely not my favorite person, but I don't mind Tom Brady when he's hanging out with F1 stars, because let me tell you, the video of him throwing the ball to Daniel Ricciardo, who catches it in Monaco on yachts, is like one of my favorite all-time videos on the internet. So I did not hate the Lewis Hamilton golfing with Tom Brady. Most importantly, what I didn't hate about it was that, I have it written down because it's so funny, and when I saw this on the internet, like when I say I laughed out loud, like I genuinely embodied what LOL means. I laughed out loud. He said, Lewis Hamilton joked when he like drove the ball on the 10th tee. He said, and I quote, "I'll stick to driving on the track," which is so funny because he was driving the golf ball, but driving the track. I thought it was so great.
I'm going to let her have a moment to laugh about that.
I mean, Katie, that was funny. Like, Lewis Hamilton throwing the puns.
Comedy. Absolute comedy.
He also, his outfits.
On fire this weekend. Absolutely on fire.
We need to talk about, was that a leather tracksuit that he was wearing that was open in the front?
I don't know if it was leather.
Looked like leather.
I don't know. I'll have to look at that. I'll have to look a little closer. Let me pull it up right now.
Pull it up right now when I talk, because if this man, Lewis Hamilton, can survive the Miami Gardens heat in a leather tracksuit, he is the greatest of all time. I mean, he's already the greatest of all time, but leather in Miami.
It kind of does look leathery.
It looks leathery. The man wore leather in the Florida heat.
It's definitely not cool. And I mean, the day before he was in that phenomenal purple suit. I'm looking at it now. And then we had the hot pink moment. So all around A+ weekend for him from me.
And the only outfit that was Miami like weather approved was the pink outfit.
Was the pink one, yeah.
Everything else was seasonally inappropriate for Florida.
Yeah, I had a friend down there, and I had put that picture of Lewis in the purple blue suit, and he was like, my friend said like, it's so fucking humid today. I don't know how he's not sweating his balls off. And I'm like, I'm sure he is, but fashion comes first.
This makes him the greatest of the paddock this weekend because he survived the Florida heat in leather.
Yeah. Oh, hands down. And it was open in the front, so got a little breeze.
This is the most we've ever talked about fashion, and I'm not even mad because the reason I want to talk about this is the man defies the odds. Leather in Florida. I repeat, leather in Florida. I've said it enough times. If you think you can wear leather in Florida, I'd love someone to test for me.
And I'm going to switch gears a little, but the other big fashion statement was Alex Albon re-dyeing his hair red. And let me tell you, it looks good.
And it's good luck.
And it is good luck, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, but it is good luck and looks good.
I'm into it. I also am super into the fact that he thinks that the red dye in his hair is bringing him good luck. He's like, it's not my driving skills. It's the red hair. I had to re-dye it because I was worried about our performance. Like, I love him.
Good egg. He is a good egg.
He is definitely a phenomenal egg. The other thing I had to bring up to talk about, Katie, is that Daniel Ricciardo jet skied and then had dinner with Yuki Tsunoda, and Yuki said it was the best crab he ever had in his life.
Oh my gosh. I love that Yuki goes on dates with the other drivers.
I mean, do you think that Yuki, like, do you think Pierre Gasly was jealous that Yuki had dinner with Daniel Ricciardo?
Honestly, might have been. Might have been.
They should have double dated. They should have double dated with Michael Jordan and Pierre Gasly.
There we go. Yeah, they should have. Because then Daniel could have gotten with Michael and then Pierre and Yuki, you know. They are our bromance of the year, I feel like.
They're the bromance of the year, and I also would have loved to see the interactions of the four of them at dinner together.
Yeah, that would have been great. Pictures would have been phenomenal, too.
Pictures incredible. I did love that Pierre Gasly, when he was asked in press conferences about his dinner with Michael Jordan, he's like, he was an inspiration. Like, it was so cool to sit at dinner with him. He's like a leader. He's an icon. He was like, he's a legend. And I was like, Pierre Gasly, you could not have said it better.
Amen.
I'd still take dinner with you over Michael Jordan. I'm sorry.
I would too. I think Michael Jordan's definitely on like top 10 list. I'd say so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put a poll. We're going to put a poll on the Instagram story tomorrow.
Yeah.
Dinner with Pierre or dinner with Michael Jordan?
You have to pick.
We are going to be in the minority, Katie.
Oh, for sure. Everyone's going to pick Michael Jordan, which is fine because go team, go basketball.
Go team, go basketball. Someone put that on a t-shirt. It's going to be us.
Go team, go basketball.
That's almost as bad
I'm doing the hand in the cookie jar as I say these things.
That's almost as bad as I hope both teams have fun.
Yeah. I do hope they both have fun, you know?
Is the Formula One equivalent to I hope both teams have fun is I hope both drivers don't DNF? Like, I hope that all the drivers finish the race? Like, what is the Formula One equivalent to that saying?
DNF, I mean, that works. Like, I just hope they all have fun.
I hope no DNFs.
I just hope they all finish the race. Because in order to score or in order to win, you have to finish the race. Isn't that what he said?
I think Will Buxton said if you come in first, then you've won the Grand Prix.
Then you've won the Grand Prix.
Like, yeah, no shit. Isn't that
one
how
of those
winning
dramatic
works?
pauses? Yeah.
He's phenomenal at them. He's genuinely the greatest. He builds such suspense for the most like common statements. Like, if you drive a Formula One car, you are an F1 driver.
You're close. You're close to it. You're getting there.
I'm gonna send him a message. Be like, hey, can I come to dramatic pause school, please?
I love it.
Okay, let's actually talk about the race a little bit now that we've gone down a rabbit hole.
If you're still with us, thank you.
If you're not, I understand. And if you decided to stop listening because of Katie's Tom Brady stance, grow up. Chaos today. Chaos. Okay.
Chaos.
The Miami Grand Prix was the 11th venue in the United States to host a Grand Prix, and no other country has hosted as many venues as America. I don't know if that says something good or something bad. I think it probably says that we haven't fucking figured it out until now. I'm gonna throw it out there. And the Miami International Autodrome is the 77th venue to host a Grand Prix, and it's the only new track of 2022 that we're going to see. I know we saw like Melbourne had some changes, but this is the first. This is the first and the only new track to join the calendar this year. So it was a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement. Katie and I are going to talk about if it actually lived up to the hype.
Yes, we are. We are going to dissect the Miami GP.
Because that is what a race recap is.
Okay, Will Buxton.
The track had 19 corners and was 5.4 kilometers with 3 DRS zones. I felt like those DRS zones weren't as used as they should have been, or we've come to think that they will be in 2022. It was also interesting to note about the surface of this track. They used a new technology or a new surfacing technique. I'm not exactly sure if it's technology or technique on this, that was designed to essentially artificially weather or wear the track so it did not feel like a new track. It was a special water jet blasting procedure. Don't ask me the details. I couldn't explain it. To me, it sounds like fancy power washing, but it artificially aged it in hopes that it would offer the drivers more grip from the onset. All weekend, there was a massive conversation about the areas that had grip, no grip. They actually had to fix the track in some areas on Friday night. Essentially, and as the best and simplest way I've come to understand the grip issues this weekend is that outside of the racing line, there was no grip in some areas and it was pretty slippery. In fact, some of the drivers mentioned it was like driving on a wet track in slicks in some areas. So interesting that technology didn't work. Some are saying that it has something to do with the limestone, the amount of limestone that was used in the asphalt. That is a part of track construction that I don't know much about, and I'm really interested to learn more about. It's on the list.
On the list of many, many topics that we still have to learn about Formula One, because the education never stops. One thing that I have to point out and we need to say a big thank you to everyone who attended our Miami Grand Prix watch party yesterday, or Sunday, I should say. We are so thankful that everyone came out and watched the race with us and asked questions and is interested in learning more about Formula One in general. So before we hopped into any more details, I just wanted to say that. Megan, have anything to add?
I think the only thing I wanted to add, it was really fun. Our mom came with us to Chicago, or came with me on the train to Chicago to watch with us. And it was really fun getting to celebrate Mother's Day with her. But more importantly, it was fun to celebrate Mother's Day, having her watch the thing that we love so much. So here is my a little belated shout out to all of the moms who love Formula One, who wake up very, very early to watch the races with their kids. You're doing great work. And if you're a mom that's not interested in Formula One yet, you should get into it. If not, we still love you and appreciate all that you do.
All right, let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty. There were a few upgrades. Actually, a couple teams brought upgrades this weekend, but the one that was most notable was Mercedes. They brought a new low drag rear wing, a revised front wing with front wing end plates, and a new beam wing, which we finished the race in fifth and sixth. We saw better improvement. I didn't see as much of the up and down, side to side, like a roller coaster porpoising. So I think they are on track to, creating a better vehicle for our drivers to drive.
I do think that the conversation about Mercedes has also changed. It felt like after the first couple of races, it was like, they're down and out. It's a piece of shit. It's an absolute shitter. It's
a disaster.
Hamilton's going to be in 17th in the drivers. It's over. The man should retire. And I think now the conversation is like, Mercedes has figured it out. They're on the up and up. I fully believe that, and I actually, get ready for me to say this, I agree with Christian Horner when he said that once Mercedes figures it out, Lewis and George now, he was specifically talking about Lewis, but I think we can throw George in there when we say, like, once they figure out the car, Lewis and George will be able to challenge for podiums. We're not there yet, but hell, I agree with Media Spice. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Did you wait? I have to, before we jump into this, speaking of the Spice Girls, did you see there's a photo of like Matt, Sergio,
Yes.
Jerry Horner, Christian Horner, and David Beckham, and it says the Spice Girl extended family? That was another audible guffaw moment.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite tweet of the whole entire weekend. So whoever that was, love you, shout out to you. That was absolutely phenomenal. It was incredible and amazing.
Incredible, amazing. It was Picasso. Like, it was just genius. Okay, now that I'm done babbling, let's get into Friday practice. For Friday, I'm going to say this was the second most interesting day behind Saturday. I'm going to put Sunday as the least most interesting day of the weekend. So let's start with Friday, second most exciting or interesting day. FP1 fastest was Charles Leclerc. He was on a soft tire, but he was just, this is insane, 0.071 seconds clear of George Russell, who was in third. Alex Albon actually went fastest in FP1, which shocked me, but we have known that the Williams has the straight line speed. The speed trap data shows that the Williams does have it. And Alex really, really showed up on Friday morning. It was really impressive to see. Other notable moments from that first practice session was Esteban Ocon had an unsafe release and almost had an incident with George Russell. It was his first reprimand of the season. He also got a penalty point.
And that's the second weekend in a row that we've had an unsafe release of Esteban Ocon with an almost run-in with a Mercedes. So I believe if it happens again, there's a fine associated with it.
Yes. Oh, I did just double check myself. I wrote names wrong. Oops. George Russell was second fastest. My bad. At one point, Albon was second fastest. I can't read my own notes. My bad, everybody. I knew I was saying that incorrectly. Okay. Other notable moments from FP1 was Valtteri Bottas went into the walls. It brought out a yellow flag that quickly became a red flag. During that red flag, Mercedes made some key changes on their car in terms of their setup, and they came out faster. Right after that, Russell was on pace with Verstappen, and Hamilton was right behind George Russell. Another notable moment from that is Alex Albon was actually fined €800 for speeding in the pit lane. So we don't talk about that often, but the pit lane rules are very, very, very specific for safety. They've the FIA has done a great job over the last couple of years to make the pit lane as safe as possible, because when you actually think about what's happening there, it seems pretty fucking unsafe. So that was the result or the reason behind that fine. FP2, George Russell went fastest. He was 0.1 seconds faster than Charles Leclerc. This was the practice session where I was like, this weekend's going to be chaos, and I was incorrect. First off, we had a red flag from Carlos Sainz, who went into the wall at turn 14. That's the entry into the tight chicane. I'm not going to talk about this yet. I'm going to talk about it when I talk about Esteban Ocon, who crashed in the same place. Next thing that we need to mention is Max Verstappen's Friday. Fucking disaster. Dumpster fire. And he knew it, and he was pissed. If you read his interview, or you listen to his interviews, and really even you listen to Christian Horner's interviews. So Max Verstappen only put up 14 points in FP1. They had to change his gearbox as a precaution on Friday morning. Eventually he would get out in FP2. When he does get out, his first comment on the radio is that his steering wheel feels heavy, and that's in my head where I was like, oh no. Next thing that happens is we see that Verstappen impedes Lance Stroll, not intentionally. He literally couldn't steer the car to avoid impeding Lance Stroll. Next thing we know, the car is smoking. It's blue smoke, so we know the car is burning oil. The rear brake is on fire. Then we have the commentators. I don't remember who said it Alboned. I died. A part of my soul died right there. I had to mention it. Then Max Verstappen would limp into the pits, and we would learn that it was a hydraulic issue. Max would say about his Friday, yeah, it was just not a good day. Summed it up. He would go on to say that it's incredibly painful, specifically in this circumstance, because this is a new track and he has to learn it. You just have to learn it. This is if you miss out on key practice laps, you are at a disadvantage. It wouldn't translate to a disadvantage this weekend, which he would luck out on. Last to note about FP2 was that Nicholas Latifi brought out a second red flag. He stopped on track as a result of a loss of drive at turn 9. Okay, let's get into Saturday, the most interesting day of the weekend. I'm going to go ahead and say there. FP3, the fastest was Sergio Perez, but that was not the interesting part of FP3. The interesting part of FP3 was, and I hate to say the word interesting, but I don't know what other words to use that. It's not interesting or good when you see a driver go into a wall, but what happened afterwards was pretty interesting. So Esteban Ocon goes into the wall at turn 14, the same spot that Carlos Sainz did the day before. Brought out a red flag. I knew immediately when I saw that car that there was no chance in hell that he was coming out for qualifying, and he wouldn't put up a time for qualifying at all. He would hit the wall at 51 Gs, which would trigger the sensor in his car that says that it was a heavy impact. I don't know the threshold for when that gets triggered. I'm going to look that up, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, and would have to be checked out by the medical team. He would turn out to be fine, so thank God for that. But what's interesting about this is that we come to find out after the fact that Carlos Sainz the night before had gone to the FIA to tell them to put Tech Pro barriers there because Carlos Sainz's crash there had left him with a sprained neck and a hip contusion. And the FIA denied Ferrari's request. So to me, that says it's fucked up that they're not listening to what the drivers are asking for in terms of safety precautions. And then the next day we have something like this happen. Esteban Ocon would say, today has felt huge, the impact. It's probably the biggest shunt of my career, to be fair. So it is absolutely amazing that Esteban, we know he wouldn't come out for qualifying, but hell, he fucking showed up on Sunday to race, and then he had a great race on Sunday. Last thing to know about FP3, I know there's a lot here. It's the most interesting day of the weekend. Verstappen in the last 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Holy shit, it was a Red Bull branding moment. The Red Bull almost went into the Red Bull wall, but Max somehow held control of that car, braked. So there's just like this 5 seconds where you see the Red Bull car staring at the Red Bull branding on the wall. And I was like, was this planned? It was obviously not, but it was impressive to see him avoid the wall and really hold on to it after he hit the curb in that tight chicane section and, almost didn't make it to see qualifying. Okay, qualifying. I'm going to do this one really quickly. Here we go. On pole was Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz would line up next to him on the front row, having qualified second. Max would be in third. The top three were separated by 0.195 seconds. So under 0.2 separated the top three drivers. And I'm going to get my number here right because I wrote it all the way out. The difference between Max and Carlos Sainz for second and third was 5 thousandths of a second. So 0.005 separated the two of them. He nearly missed out on lining up on the front row. Qualifying one, we would see Ocon not come out due to the crash in FP3, but we would see Zhao have to abort his fast lap because he got stuck in traffic. He would be out as well in Q1. Q2, the biggest thing out of that is George Russell and Daniel Ricciardo would be out. And then in Q3, we saw both AlphaTauris. We saw Lewis Hamilton, and we saw Lance Stroll, and we saw Valtteri Bottas, and we saw Lando Norris. So it was a great, great Q3. If you haven't watched it in full, I highly recommend you go watch this one. We had Max Verstappen on provisional pole after the first set of runs. And after the first set of runs, the top three, that would be Carlos, Charles, and Max Verstappen would be separated by 0.08 of a second. On the second runs, Charles Leclerc would be able to take provisional pole. Carlos Sainz would be in second. Sainz lost all of his time in the third sector, so that's why he wasn't able to challenge Charles. And then Verstappen fucked it. His words, not mine. He went wide and lost time in the first sector, so that prevented him from being able to put up a second solid qualifying time and be able to potentially challenge for pole. And that was Saturday, the most interesting day of the weekend. Sorry, Katie. It's up to you to make Sunday interesting. And don't talk about Martin Brundle.
Well, that was the most interesting part. So
I'm kidding. You can talk about him.
All right, let me talk about him for a second. Then I'll do my lights out, and away we went. Martin Brundle, chaotic, absolute chaos. The pre-race grid walk was probably the worst pre-race grid walk I've ever seen. He was going up to celebrities. He was going up to people who he thought were celebrities that weren't celebrities. At one point, he thought someone who is clearly not Patrick Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes. And the best part is these celebrities have no idea who Martin Brundle is. He's like, hi, I'm Martin Brundle from Sky F1 Sports, and who do you think is going to win today? And they're like, Pharrell's like, yeah, I got my friend with me, Richard Mille. And I'm like, no. I'm like, please just stop talking. But honestly, Megan's right. That was the most interesting part of Sunday. The race was, as she said earlier, cookie cutter. And we did have a wake-up moment later on in the race. But let's just jump right into it so we can get to our questions. That's all I've got for you. That's the race recap. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So it's lights out and away we went for the first time in Miami. Charles and Max both got away well. Charles was in the lead. Max took the outside into turn one to get around Carlos Sainz, and both Mercs lost some positions in the first lap. Actually, they both fell back at least 2 or 3, and we went racing. Lewis was able to gain the momentum back early on. He took the inside of both Alonso and Pierre, pulling himself back up to P6, and he was able to ultimately finish the race in that position. His teammate George had a brilliant recovery drive. He overtook Lewis later on in the race around lap 49. They had a little battle. Valtteri went wide, and both the Mercs were able to scoot past him, and they just battled it out. It was kind of incredible to watch, and I enjoy watching George and Lewis in the same car battling it out. It was one of the highlights of the race for me. And he finished just ahead of Lewis in P5. Guan Yu Zhao had to retire his car on lap 7, so early retirement. It was our first retirement. And we didn't get much action until people started pitting. We actually had a lot of slow pit stops, causing switches in grid positions, causing delays and getting back out on track. It was a super hot day in Miami, and when the wheel nuts get too hot, they are super temperamental, and so we saw a lot of, three wheels were on, but that last wheel was just a little loose or a little stuck and needed some extra seconds. So lots of long pit stops that ultimately changed the game. The one that stuck out to me the most was Fernando Alonso. He had like a 5.6 second pit stop that just plummeted him in the grid.
Which felt like an eternity. 5.6 seconds felt like
an eternity,
a lifetime.
I can't even think back to the Valtteri wheel stuck one. That was 20 something before they were like, okay, we're done.
Don't bring it up. Moving on.
Sorry, moving on. Okay, so on lap 20, it seemed that Sergio Perez was losing power, but this was recoverable, and Perez went on to finish fourth just outside of the podiums. This means that he has finished fourth in all of the races thus far except for one, so he's doing well. On lap 37, going forward a little bit further, Russell predicted the future. Absolutely predicted the future and asked his team to wait off to pit to see if there was going to be a virtual safety car. And just 4 laps later, Lando and Pierre had a run-in, which caused Lando to lose a wheel and spin around multiple times before coming to a stop and ultimately having to DNF. This triggered a virtual safety car, which then got leveled up to a full-on safety car. What happened basically was Pierre had slowed down and a couple cars were able to get around him, and they entered the blind corner and the two of them touched. Basically, Pierre didn't seem to notice that Lando was there. A lot of the drivers were complaining that that was a blind corner and that's where they were experiencing some difficulty. So I don't know if there's really fault to put on anyone other than, sometimes you're just in a tough spot. Pierre also retired a few laps later due to the damage that he sustained. So both of them were out of the race at that point. With just 5 laps to go, Perez went down the inside line of turn 1 to overtake Carlos Sainz, but outbraked himself and allowed Carlos to regain P3, which was a moment that the bar went ecstatic for, because who doesn't love a Carlos Sainz, especially after his poor showing and poor luck the past couple of races. It was nice to see him finish up on the podium. And then, this was I think the heartbreaking moment of the race. In lap 54, Schumacher ran into Vettel's side pod trying to take the inside line on turn 1. And this caused Vettel to ultimately retire and Schumacher to come home in 15th place. In the end, Leclerc was close to Max, but was not able to capitalize on taking the lead back, unfortunately. So we had Carlos Sainz in P3, Charles Leclerc in P2, taking his first U.S. podium finish and achieving his 16th consecutive race finish today, which Charles Leclerc, the man who Leclerc's it, I don't know, that stat kind of got me. Which
you better
is the
knock
longest.
On some wood. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but fucking knock on some wood, because you almost...
I just knocked. It's
now
going to be fine.
You can go back. It's going to be fine. Just say it all again. Sorry. I was like, she is doing what?
Hey, my manifesting powers are a lot stronger than my jinxing powers, so get ready for the prayer circle. Which the 16 consecutive race finishes is actually the longest active streak at the moment. With Lando's DNF, it ended his 15 race streak, so they would have been tied. And then obviously we had Max Verstappen for the win in P1, and Verstappen moved into the top 10 in all-time podium finishes, just going ahead of David Coulthard. So, no matter how anyone feels about it, we can't deny that Max has the talent and deserves to be where he is. So great to see that. Great to see a win from him.
I mean, it was his 23rd win in his career, his third this year, and technically Max's streak of if he finishes a race this year, he wins the race continues.
It's still alive.
It's 4 for 4.
4 for 4. We had a lot. You might think I'm done because I've gone through the winners, but we had a lot of post-race penalties. So Alonso was handed a 5-second penalty for colliding with Gasly, which dropped him from P8 to P9 at the flag. And then he received another 5-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining advantage, dropping him to P11, which ended up promoting Alex Albon to P9 and Lance Stroll in the points to P10. Magnussen also received a 5-second penalty for causing a collision, and Danny Rick received a 5-second penalty for also leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Again, this is a change from last year when the FIA would just direct the driver during the race to give the position back, and now they receive this 5-second penalty after investigations after the race, which we're going to talk about a little bit more as well. Going into this weekend, let's put our betting hat on for just a second. I don't have much to say again this week. I had no idea what was going to happen, and I was honestly nervous to place some bets. So I thought I was playing it safe. I was going to put money on Max, but sadly I didn't. He would have won me all my money back. The only winning bet was blessed to me by the safety car gods. For the winning margin under 5 seconds, but more bets to come for Barcelona, so keep an eye out on that. For our fantasy wrap up.
Oh my God, I knew we have to do it, but I'm just so mad. Fernando Alonso's bleh, Pierre Gasly, bleh. That's my thoughts on fantasy.
I had Kevin Magnussen this weekend too, so not great.
I'm sorry. I got whatever. Keep talking.
So our lovely brother Gavin is in the lead with 4,813 points. I am in third with 4,662, and Megan is still mounting her Brazil comeback. She is in seventh with 4,500 points. So the season's shaking up. There's still so much time left, so Lord knows who's going to end up where, but I have a feeling that Megan will be getting a tattoo of my choice by the end of the year.
It's fine. You know, we got Brazil and Monaco next. They're going to be boring, but they'll help my comeback.
Barcelona.
Oh, what did I say?
Brazil comeback in Barcelona and Monaco. You got it.
I literally the bees. I'm still on the pain medication. We'll just blame the pain medication for all my flubs in the last week. I had a full conversation with someone saying the wrong driver name this weekend. Let's just go with that. And I was like, wait, what? I wasn't saying that the whole time. And they were like, no.
Like, no. She's doing great, by the way. She's really doing wonderful.
I'm doing great. All good things are all good always. In the words of Danny Ricciardo, all good always. Okay, Katie, I am just... Let's do this. You have raced questions, correct? Or do you have...
I have race questions, yes.
So let's start with race questions.
Yeah, I actually have one race question, so let's start with that. And it's about those post-race penalties that I mentioned just a moment ago. Basically, let's just talk about how we feel about how it feels to have these post-race penalties handed out versus when they were just told to give the place back during the race. To me, it's just like, it seems like more work in the idea of they've got to go back and like redo the stats and they got to redo this. I'm like, honestly, just tell them during the race. So what are your thoughts?
Okay, so here, first off, full stop, I don't love the fact that we don't know this stuff until after the race. I just feel like it doesn't really make sense in all of these in all of these situations. It does not make sense for these penalties to not be handed out in race. So here's my delineation about it and why I think some of these make sense, but ultimately none of them make sense. So Daniel Ricciardo, I'm going to read the exact wording from the document. So the FAA document said car 3, Daniel Ricciardo, preserved its position in front of car 20, Kevin Magnussen, by leaving the track at turn 12, thereby gaining a lasting advantage. So the decision was a 5-second time penalty. To me, it makes more sense for him to have to give that position back because it was another driver that he impeded from having the overtake be successful, essentially. So to me, that should be in race because that could theoretically have changed the order. I mean, all of these things could have theoretically changed the order, but that was like an overtake that was prevented from happening. Makes sense for that to be something that is given back in race. Fernando Alonso's document says car 14, Fernando Alonso, left the track at turn 14, gaining a lasting advantage. Decision, 5-second time penalty, and 1 penalty point. So there was no position for him to give back in that scenario based on the wording of the FIA document. So to me, again, none of this really makes sense. Why this is all happening post-race. I get that they want this all to be accurate. You know, how we want to fully investigate. We want to see all the directions. But the race was over. Like, everybody left the bar. The race was done. The coverage was over. They show the classification at the end of the coverage. And then, 25, 30 minutes later, you're like, the results that you saw are not actually the results. That should not be like a habit. That should be like an exception, not the rule, that we don't know the race results at the end of the race.
Exactly.
Maybe that is a jaded view of jaded, but I think it does not make sense in terms of viewership. And if that's what Formula One is so interested on, is viewership, increasing the popularity, increasing the fan base, then when the viewer stops watching the race, they should know the results. It's inconsistent. That's my point.
And I just feel like these things can be addressed during the race, especially now that we've got the advisor, the team of advisors that are there. Like, I get there's other things going on in the race and they have to be paying attention, but you've got a team.
Yeah.
Address it during the race. Make them give the position back. Make it be quote unquote fair. And if you're fairer, and if you're unable to make the decision during the race, then fall back and do it post race. But this whole changing of the results, it's silly.
Well, it feels really silly if the mission of Formula One right now, which is, we're about to talk about this, is very clear. Increase viewership, increase engagement, increase the fan base, the popularity, the notoriety, the number of people watching. If your goal is all of that, then at the completion of the broadcast, your viewers should know. For us, it's a little bit different. Like, I read the FIA documents. I know these things. I think they're interesting. Yes, I did just say that the boring FIA documents are interesting. Someone at me. I don't give a shit. But for the majority of people take the watch party, it was probably only me and you that read the documents. I bet you if you asked any of them, they wouldn't even know. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. I just feel like then to have to go back and explain to all these new viewers, like, oh, you saw that this was happening, you saw that this was the result, but you don't have the Formula One app downloaded, you didn't get the breaking news update, like, we've lost them. There's this like gap of like, it's almost misinformation because they think that they have watched the race, they know who's in the points, they know who's gained advantage in both the constructors and the drivers championship, and then they come back and they're like, wait a minute, I feel like that's wrong. And then they have to go back to the race before. It shouldn't be this difficult.
Granted,
Keep it simple.
keep it simple. And yes, I do know that, your average viewer is not like, oh my God, wait, I thought Fernando Alonso was in P9 and blah, blah, blah. Right? That's I said that right. I think I said that right. Let me double check myself.
P9 before the
P8.
penalty.
So he was in P8, then he dropped to P9 due to the 5-second penalty for the Gasly collision. He was in P9 when they had the 5-second penalty, and that dropped him to P11th. Yes, I did all that math correctly in my head.
Yep.
So I don't know if your casual viewer would be like, oh wow, Alonso was supposed to be this, and now he's suddenly this, because they're not looking at the race results like we are, other people who are avid fans. But I do think there's something to be said about what you said. Like at the end of the viewership, they should not have to feel like there's potentially a more information going to come out after the fact. You were perfectly right when you said that, like, not everybody has the F1 app and got the breaking news alert. What about all the people who got the breaking news alert and were like, oh, didn't look at it because they didn't know that would change the race results? It feels a little contradictory if we have one F1 mission, but then like literally the governing body and the rules are saying something kind of different.
And I am going to be very intrigued to see how this plays out if it is at the front of the grid and not the middle of the grid. Because these penalties affected P8, 9, 10, 11, and I believe a couple more.
12.
Not the front of the grid. So it's like, what happens if this was Max and Charles? Why did we get up there and have a podium celebration if Max is really second place and Charles is really first place? Do they swap the trophies?
Well, yeah. Granted, that didn't happen this race, but I don't doubt that it isn't going to happen in the future. And I bet you it'll be like prediction that this is going to come back to haunt somebody, in a potentially title deciding race. Because that would just be the FIA.
Cherry on top of the FIA.
That would just be the inconsistency of Formula One's FIA rules that we have known to have happen. Okay, we're kind of hinting about viewership, and so this is a question that I wanted to talk to you about. How does Formula One? I said we. How do we? Formula One is the we in this. Liberty Media, the FIA, the teams, whoever, insert the we you want to use here. How do they increase exposure of the sport without it becoming diluted? And I asked this for a couple of reasons. I felt like there was a lot of social media coverage ahead of this weekend that was a little strange, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
How does the sport increase that viewership, exposure, popularity, increase the fan base without taking away from the fact that this is like the pinnacle of motorsport and we are ultimately there to see fast cars go vroom vroom?
I think it comes down to two things. And I might change my mind and add a third later. But immediately off the top of my head, I think about two things. And the first is education and teaching people what Formula One even is so that they understand when they're going to the race what is happening. I mentioned this to Megan. I was like, why is everybody in the pool and not watching qualies? Because people are going for the event. They're not going for the race. And so I'm totally fine if you want to go for the event. And the second thing, I'm jumping ahead, is cost. Those who can go to the race and afford to sit in the pool and not pay attention to the race are able to do that. Those who are avid fans of Formula One and want to go for the race may not be able to financially afford to go to a race. And so when Megan and I were making the decision on whether or not to go to Miami, because let me tell you, we had the Airbnb booked, we had flights thought out, we had everything, and then the tickets dropped, and we were like, we can go to Canada, Austin, and another race for the price of Miami. We're not going. And then when the day passes came out and the GA day passes came out and they were $900 a day, I was like, how does someone who is our age, who is a young fan, who is living on their own, who has bills to pay, afford to spend $900 on the ticket alone, not including getting there, getting to the race, and a place to stay, plus all of the events that they want to probably attend that go on the weekend as well.
And you had to know that those prices in there were like Super Bowl prices on steroids for food and drink too. Like,
yeah. I saw a picture of a merch stand, and the Haas hat was $30, and every other hat was like $80. And someone was like, "Shout out to Haas for having reasonable merch."
I think the cost is a big factor. I genuinely think that and look, I watched all the press conferences. I heard that, all the team principals were very, very, Toto and Zach Brown were like, we're getting requests to come to this, like request after request after request for all of our partners in our meet. And I'm not saying that none of them deserve to be there, but there needs to be like a cost-effective option. I do understand, like, there is something to be said that, like, maybe, Miami is the race that prices everybody out, that allows for Formula One to have the money to be able to go to tracks that are, not as like glamorous. If that's the case, just come out and say that. Like, this is the celebrity event that we make all of our money at so that we can have smaller, less known races that are good, solid races. If that's what it is, I'd like you to just be honest with me. But don't spend weeks and weeks and weeks trying to increase your fan base, your everyday fans, not your celebrity fans who don't know who's the drivers, like don't even know how to answer who do you want to win. Like, it really is kind of like insulting a little bit to be like, wow, I can't afford that.
And I'm fine with them going and supporting their friend Lewis Hamilton, because I know a lot of the people who were there to support Lewis. But then don't make it about them.
Make it about the fans.
Make it about the everyday
viewers.
fans. The everyday fans that watch every weekend, that support every weekend, that buy the merch, that want to meet the drivers, that try to get themselves to a race a year, that wake up every single weekend and watch and care about it and have heart and passion about the sport. Allow them to be able to go to these races.
And you know what? Maybe the trade-off is that there's an inexpensive opportunity to have access to watch it. There has to be a trade here, because, for some people, $80 a year to get F1 TV is too much money. So if you want to increase a fan base, you got to find ways to do it. Like, so if you're going to have the big blowout in Miami, you acknowledge that it's the celebrity event, but then you trade off by doing something else to ensure that there's access along the way. I know that the Miami Dolphins and the venue itself allowed for there to be passes for people from the community of Miami Gardens to attend. I read an article that said there was like 500 passes a day for the residents of Miami Gardens, which I was like, okay, olive branch, considering there was so much controversy around the event, why the event was taking place there. I just don't feel like it's enough. But I always say that about Formula One, that it's not enough. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, what are our thoughts? I love McLaren, so I'm gonna throw some shade here. Was the James Corden thing necessary?
I'm rolling my eyes. This is such like it's not a hard question, but it's a hard answer to form, because until I see if there's actually content that comes out of this, like, I don't know. I don't watch the Late Late Show. I watch clips here and now. Did I already miss that it has come out? Maybe they don't air on Sunday. Maybe it's going to come out tonight, Monday. Is there going to be something that draws more people and brings more attention to Formula One? Like, is James Corden going to use his platform to educate people on what Formula One is? Probably not. So, a little ridiculous. And after the weekend they had, I'm curious to know if they're kicking themselves for focusing too much on the media and hanging out with James Corden and not studying their shit.
Heard on that. I mean, okay, look, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna say it for everybody. The crop tops were funny. I want one.
Hilarious.
I want one. Hilarious. Incredible. If all they had done were the crop tops, I'd be like, whatever. I wouldn't have ever asked this question. But it was the weird press thing that they did where James Corden like wanted Daniel's legs to be rested and carried him. It felt a little much. But I'll be honest, I felt like everything Miami was just a little much.
The police escorts were a little much.
The helmets, a little much. The Dan Marino statue in every shot of the podium, a little much.
The helmet was the worst moment of my day yesterday.
I will say.
We were sitting... Oh, go ahead, Megan. Sorry.
No. Say your thing, and then I'll say something that's gonna make you die.
Megan and I were sitting across the bar from each other, and the first helmet came out, and we looked at each other, and we were like, "You've got to be fucking kidding me!" We brought all of our friends to watch the race, and Formula One is making a fool of themselves with these shitty F1 football helmets. So what? We're at a football stadium. I don't fucking care. It doesn't have... Oh, I'm sorry. They were just so tacky, and I hated it. I hated it so much.
It was too American. It hurt.
It hurt. I was embarrassed.
First off, so embarrassed. Second off, I don't know if you watched the post-race press conference with Charles, Carlos, and Max, but they asked them about the event, and Sainz was like, it was a mega event. There were lots of people in the paddock. And Max Verstappen goes... We needed the helmets. He said, this is not an exact quote. He was like, we needed the helmets from the podium. We needed them in the paddock.
Damn.
I mean, Max was like, Lewis was spitting fire. Max was just like comedy.
Absolute comedy. Okay, I do want to talk about one other thing before we move on.
Yeah, let's go for it.
They could not have found anyone else from ESPN to commentate this race. Not to commentate it, but to like report on it. Like that's part of the going back to the like increased exposure without it becoming stupid. Find people who know how to say Grand Prix.
She did. She said Grand Prix. And again, another lull of the moment. Here's what else I'm going to say about ESPN's coverage while we're dragging them, because it pissed me off. There was this weird joke every time I watched ESPN Sports Center this weekend. Like, she drew the short straw. You drew the short straw to be there. So were they making... Like, I could not figure out, were they, like, making fun of the fact that she drew the short straw and was there, or were they sad that they weren't there? Like, I couldn't get the joke, but it came off to me that it was like, hi, she drew the short straw and was the unlucky one that had to cover the Miami Grand Prix. Shit, ESPN, your own reporters don't want to cover it? We're available. We're available for all 23. We could do more. We'll do practices as well. We'll do the Pirelli tests. ESPN, you want reporters? We're it. Because your own reporters clearly did not even act like they were excited to cover the Grand Prix. I mean, I'm sorry, the Grand Prix.
I didn't hear it live, but someone told me that, and I almost threw up. I'm sorry, you're on national television and you don't know how to say Grand Prix? You're covering a Grand Prix and you don't know how to say Grand Prix?
Have you never seen Iron Man 2?
Have you never seen Cars?
Iron Man 2?
Like, get some education. All right.
Have you never seen Iron Man 2?
Yeah, Iron Man 2.
I'm surprised it's me saying that.
I know. Good job. Well, name another movie from Marvel.
Captain America.
All right, good job. We're working on her
Widow.
Marvel education. Oh, good job.
Endgame.
All right.
Spider-Man, No Way Home.
All right, that's plenty.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
You're
Iron
done.
Man 3.
You're done.
Avengers.
All right. You ask your next question because I want to save mine for last.
Okay, so my last question. So in the press conferences, I know I'm going back to the press conferences with the team principals. They're really interesting this weekend. I highly recommend, if you don't normally watch them, this weekend's were some good ones to watch. The first one had Toto Wolff, Zach Brown, and Laurent Rossi as their three that were being asked questions. They were asked about their thoughts on adding an 11th or 12th Formula One team. So I felt like we had to talk about this, and I feel like it was a massive talking point this weekend because of Andretti being a potential American team to join. But we've also had the news that Audi and Porsche are in very heated or very in-depth conversations about joining. Porsche's being potentially considering a power unit move with Red Bull. Their plans are unannounced, but are pretty solidified as what the rumors are telling us. What do you think? What do you think? Should we have 11 and two more teams? Should we have one more team?
I'm overwhelmed by this question, but I will do my best to answer it because it's just really hard for me to picture there being 12 teams. Like in my mind. So, okay, that's 12 teams. So that's 24 drivers. Like, that's what my brain does when I hear that. I'm excited about it though. They've done it before. It's happened before. I've watched a few races where there have been more than 20 drivers, but it is so foreign to me. Like the concept of there being more than 10 constructors, 20 drivers is a foreign concept. And so I'm working on absorbing it and digesting it, but I think I'm going to be okay with it, especially because it's bringing two well-known names into Formula One. Like when I say the name Red Bull, people know who I'm talking about. When I say Mercedes, they know what I'm talking about. When I say Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, Alpine, people kind of look at me like kind of quizzical, like that they're not familiar with those names. People are familiar with Audi and Porsche. They know those names. And so I think that's part of it in totality is I think it will draw more and more people into the sport based on their popularity. I will be interested to see what actually happens and what gets aligned and what works out. But I get where Toto Wolff is coming with the, you've already cut our budgets. You've already changed everything. Are we sure we want to shake it up again and add two more teams?
And really, I think the bigger question, I support everything you said, so I'm going to just add one thing to it. The bigger question is, if you bring in two more teams, it dilutes the prize money. There's less money that is awarded to the teams. So if two more teams, even if one more team's joining the grid, the benefits that they bring have to outweigh the cost. I don't know enough about, the ins and outs of the Andretti deal, the potential, what Audi is going to do. Really, we don't really even know what Porsche is going to do. I do think that an Andretti name with an American driver would solidify the Formula One takeover of North America.
Colton Herta.
Look, I won't comment on Audi and Porsche, but I will say that if Andretti comes in as but like the American team with an American driver, America, you have just bitten into Formula One and it's not going anywhere.
Amen. All right. I don't know if you're going to like my next question.
Jesus. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Okay. Silly season
already
is not that far away. Like, we're moving and grooving through these race weekends. So Monaco is like it's two races away. And I feel like that's like the turning point in the season where things start to rile up with drama. So let's just we don't have to talk about it for long, but let's just talk about a couple drivers. One in particular, Nicholas Latifi. What's
He's got to
Williams
go.
going to do? He's got to go.
Gotta go. Gotta go. Gots to go. Gots to go. Man has nope. Too much. Caused me too much heartache. Caused the sport. I love the dude. Great guy. Great guy. Beautiful.
Great
girlfriend.
personality.
Loves Nutella. I feel like I could hang out with him and have dinner. A lovely, nice dinner that he paid for because he has a lot more money than I do. He's got to go. So two things. I think the lack of Nikita Mazepin being the shitbox that he was and having Alex Albon being so successful this year. This is not shade on George last year. No shade to George. Just saying, based on what Alex is doing this year, I mean, he has outqualified him. He's outperformed him. He's put the Williams into the points twice this year. We're 5 races in. I think the combination of the two, no Nikita and Alex Albon as his teammate, has shown how he is.
Yeah. Okay, Fernando Alonso.
I mean, he said he was not going to, he's sticking around 2 or 3 more years. Don't know where he's going to be, probably Alpine.
I like this. We're going to keep doing this Spitfire. Sergio Perez.
He's going to re-sign his contract. Media Spice would never let him go. He's the Minister of Defense.
Amen. All right, Sebastian Vettel.
If he doesn't sign with Aston Martin, I don't know where he's going. And I don't think he's happy at Aston Martin.
I don't think he's happy, and if they don't see any improvement, I don't think he'll be done, but I don't think I don't know. I think it's too early for him to retire, but he could be over it.
I could see why he's over it. Man wore his underwear on the outside of his racing suit. Not on accident, on purpose to protest, but it's very clear that he's fucking done with the FIA.
Amen.
Maybe he'll stick around to cause chaos. I don't know.
Love it. Love it. Pierre Gasly.
I want him in a better car.
Yuki Tsunoda.
Stays at AlphaTauri.
Mick Schumacher.
Stays at Haas.
Then I think we'll graduate in a couple of years.
He's not ready. He's not ready.
He's not ready.
Love him. Not ready.
Alex Albon.
If Pierre gets a different seat, I could see Alex to AlphaTauri.
Okay, I like that.
That would mean Pierre would have to go somewhere else. I'm not even gonna say what I'm thinking. I think you can probably read between the lines on my face, and some of the fans will probably know what I'm saying. Where I don't want to talk about where I think Pierre Gasly might end up.
And finally, Guan Yu Zhao.
He's gonna stay at Alfa Romeo. He's a rookie.
Okay,
he's a rookie. It'll be him and Valtteri again next year.
Okay, see, that wasn't painful. I'm glad I brought it up.
Kind of painful. I don't want to talk about it. Moving on.
All right. The last thing we have to address, and this can be short and sweet, was Miami really worth all the hype?
Oh, words are hard here. I think that it was necessary to have a Super Bowl of F1 in America. I don't think Miami was. I'm not sad that we weren't there. That is what I will say. It was necessary to have it. I'm not sad I wasn't there for 2 things. I just don't know if I would have loved all of the celebrityness of it and the Monaco and the US-ness of it. I think if I want to go to Monaco, I'm going to go to Monaco. Like an Ironman too. I think it was a mega event. Just like all the drivers, just like all the team principals said, it was the event. It was an incredible atmosphere. I think it was needed. I'm glad we passed. Especially with how boring Sunday was. Sunday wasn't awful. It wasn't totally boring, but 40 laps of. I'm glad we watched it on the TV. That's what I'll say. I'll take back what I said. I'm glad we watched it on the TV. What are your thoughts?
I think overall I was slightly disappointed, mainly because the race was not as interesting as I wanted it to be. I mean, they went through 36 track variations before they landed on this one, and I don't know if it specifically was the track layout. I don't know if it was the grip. I don't know, but I just wanted more action. I wanted more, and I wanted less of the frilly, more of the racing in totality. So to me, no, it was not worth all the hype, but maybe it will be better next year.
I mean, I also could just be saying all of this because I have like a little bit of FOMO for not, being there for the first Miami Grand Prix. But I just, look, it made me really excited about Canada. It made me really excited about going to an established track that has had historic races on it that is going to not be a celebrity haven.
Amen. All right, tell me about your loser.
I'm going to go through my loser pretty quickly because I'm pretty sad about it. My losers are actually Mick Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel. Yes, I'm allowed to have two because they had contact. I skirted the rules on this one. But both Mick and Sebastian made of course, they made contact together on lap 53. They were both running in the points, and so that's why they're my losers. Sebastian Vettel was in 9th. Mick Schumacher was in 10th. I was so excited. I was like, Mick's going to get points, and then there will only be one driver. And then, didn't happen. I thought Vettel was to blame in the accident. Granted, it was like both fault, but I thought Vettel was predominantly to blame. When I watched it back a couple of times, it looked like he turned in to Mick Schumacher. The stewards would review it and later decide that there no further action needed to be taken. Neither was predominantly to be blamed. But honestly, I think the entire Formula One world, those that are not celebrities and know the drivers' names, took a collective groan when they saw it was the two of them having contact. Because, yeah, I do love that after the after the race, all of the press conferences, they were like, "I don't blame him. I don't blame him." And Mick was like, "I have a lot to learn from him." So I mean, nothing's changed. They're still a great pair in the paddock, but it was heartbreaking to watch. So they're my losers. Who is your loser?
Lando Norris.
Ay caramba.
Ay caramba. It's honestly just a disappointment anytime there's a silly mistake that ends a race for a driver. And I don't know, it's just like another hit for McLaren. And at the end of the day, we're McLaren fans, so hard to see.
It is hard to see. It's hard to watch. It was not pretty.
Tell me about your winner.
My winner is Esty Bestie Ocon.
Esty Bestie.
He started at the back of the grid after his crash in FP3, which was a 51G crash. So to me, it's incredible that he raced on Sunday after that accident. He was evaluated by the medical team, cleared by the medical team, good to go. But his car would not be ready for qualifying. Hell, he fucking cracked the chassis in that crash. He finished 8th after Fernando Alonso was demoted, but really it was impressive. He avoided all the nonsense in the midfield where we saw, the Aston Martins and the AlphaTauris and the Haas's taking each other out back and forth. He avoided all of that, got some key points, finished ahead of his teammate, and it was a good race for him. It was a good Sunday victory after a shitty week. And what about you?
I chose Carlos Sainz. I know. Ooh. Yeah, I know. Only a P3, but phenomenal after he's only finished one lap in the last 2 races. And I think this is exactly what he needs to get back into fighting shape. I think the luck has turned. We are in a good place now, and we've got Barcelona coming up, which is his home race. So lots of support will be there, and I'm excited for him for the next race. And who knows, maybe we'll see some more action from him and get another podium.
Carlos, I need a win at Barcelona. It's fine if you don't do it. I kind of figured you won't, but whatever.
It'd be nice though. We'd appreciate it.
I'd be very thankful.
All right, our honorable mention of the weekend. We've talked about him a little bit, but we've got to give him another shout out. It's the red-haired Alex Albon, and clearly the red hair dye is working. So Alex has been out driving his Williams all year. He had a strong practice, like we've said earlier, and pace kind of lost him in qualies. He started the race P18 and finished P10. Then was upgraded to P9 with the penalties assessed. So since dyeing his hair red, the first time he dyed his hair, he went from P20 to P10 in Melbourne, and then it faded a little, and he went from P20 to P11, still a phenomenal drive. And then he re-dyed it, and we got the P18 to P9. So again, been doing stellar work in the Williams, and he deserves our honorable mention of the weekend.
I love it. Okay, our hidden gem. I know that there was a lot of controversy surrounding this race. There was, oh goodness, let's start. There was a petition filed in April to hopefully, or an attempt to get by the residents to not have the race go on. The former mayor of Miami Gardens called out the event, to the fact that it was like a huge international event that was toxic to the people of the local community. Lots of controversy about ticket prices, lots and lots of controversy about location. It wasn't even in Miami. It was in Miami Gardens, 20 minutes from downtown. So it's even named incorrectly, but that's not the hidden gem. I am going to say that beyond all of that nastiness, there is some glimmer. There is some hope. As a part of the promise to the to the community, the Miami Dolphins have an F1-centered initiative that promotes STEM education, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, to local nearby schools. So last Wednesday, Sebastian Vettel spent time at the Carroll City Middle School as part of the F1 in Schools program. And then on Thursday, Lewis Hamilton met with a group of local children as well. And he said, and I quote, "It's just great to see that we're tapping into those different cultures, those different communities, who perhaps once didn't think it was for them because they didn't see someone that looked like them in the sport, maybe." And I think that's super encouraging. So beyond all the controversy, there is, again, we have Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton going above and beyond off track. They're not the only ones, but they're the two that I really wanted to talk about. It's awesome to see, and I'm very thankful that they're doing that.
And that brings us to the end of another race recap. Again, thank you so much to everyone who came out to our anti-Miami watch party. We are so thankful for you and all of our listeners who allow us to keep doing this and allow us to talk about Formula One and allow us to have a community to talk Formula One about with. So up next is another bye week before we head to Barcelona. So check out our next episode, a team deep dive.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us at Dirty Driving Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Until next time, stay dirty.